there, my name's Chantal and welcome to my first YouTube video. I thought I'd just start as a little fun thing to do, to tell you about what I've been reading, to get some of your recommendations on what you think I should be reading, and just find some like-minded people who have the same sort of reading taste as me and will introduce me to some new stuff. So basically just somewhere that we can all just talk about our books. Currently it is the 23rd of September and October is fast approaching, which means one thing: spooky season, and I am so excited for it. I love October, I love Halloween, so I thought I would read some books to get me into the spooky season spirit. So to do this, I read 4 books. I've got 3 here. I've got a 4th one as well, but I seem to have lost that, but I'm going to talk through it all anyway. So I thought I'd start with my first book, which is this one, Come Closer by Sarah Gran. So it's a little short book. I read it in one sitting and it's about a woman, well, it's about a demon who is trying to get into a woman's body, so insert themselves and take over her body. And this book just talks about how it affects her everyday life, how it affects her relationship, how it affects her job, how she's trying to fight it, literally every single aspect of her life, and it's sort of tearing it apart in a way. And the whole book is just sort of discussing that. I feel this book really makes you question yourself. It talks a lot about free will and how you think you want to do something, you think, I want to do this, so I'm going to go and do it. And then you reflect on it and you're like, wait, that doesn't sound like me. And then you think, oh my gosh, do I have free will? I don't know. So this book discusses that, and I found that to be sort of the most insidious and scary element of it. It was written really straightforward in the sense that this happens, then this happens, then this happens, and this happens, which made it a really easy read. And I think that's what made me not want to put it down. However, it was a very simple story. It was a simple premise. And so with that straightforward way of writing, it wasn't the most groundbreaking book I've ever read in my life, but I feel like it got me into the spooky spirit, which I appreciated. So I'll then talk about the second book that I read, which I actually don't have. I'm not sure where I put it, but I can't find it anywhere. But it was The Outsider by Stephen King. Obviously, we all know Stephen King. We all associate him with his spooky books. So I actually got this book for my birthday last year. So I got it in December last year, but I thought I would save it for the spooky season to get me into the mood. And this was a really good one. I've only read, I think, 3 or 4 of his books so far. I eventually want to read them all. I know he's got loads, but this one was a really good one. It's centered around these murders, these really horrible, gruesome murders that keep happening. And this one in particular happens in this small town. And the detectives think it's an easy job. They know who's done it. There's loads of evidence against this man in the town. But this man is, he's a really well-loved figure of the town. He's like the football coach. Everyone loves him. But they have this damning evidence on him. They've got eyewitnesses around the night with blood on his face. And they think, that's it, we've got him. But plot twist, he has an alibi. So he has basically got video evidence of him being hours away at the time of the murder. He also went with a group of people who can all vouch for him and say he was there. So how can this man be in 2 places at once? And basically that's the whole story of them uncovering that. So it's a group of detectives who set out to uncover this sort of mystery. I thought this book was quite scary, it's quite spooky. I actually found it really spooky because I read it, I was on a work trip, so I was in a hotel room by myself, and at one point it talks about these piercing red eyes, and then I turn the light off to go to sleep and I see the piercing red light from the standby on the TV, and I was like, oh my gosh, just go to sleep quick, because that sort of scared me. I feel like hotel rooms are scary as they are, so reading a scary book in a hotel room by yourself was a spooky experience, which I appreciated because it got me in the spooky spirit. So I feel like it was a really good, solid Stephen King book. So then another book, my 3rd book that I read, is a classic, Dracula. We all know Dracula. How nice is this cover? This is actually my boyfriend's book, and he informed me of this, but it's written on the back. And it says it's reprinted with identical typeface and layout as the original in 1897. So this is exactly how it looked. This is the cover when it was very first released. And then inside it's printed the exact same. I actually didn't know it was this long, which I was quite surprised about. Last year I read Frankenstein, which was a lot shorter, but I don't know if this is controversial or not, but I actually didn't love it that much. I feel like I didn't really connect with the characters at all. I don't know, and I felt like it should have been maybe a bit longer. I don't know. I didn't love it, which I was surprised about. So I thought this year I'd give another classic another go. So we all know Dracula, you know, the tall, thin, deathly pale man, but I actually didn't know what it was about, like the actual story. So it's written through diary entries from some of the main characters, and I love this format. I thought it worked really well. It's written like, it changes up the story, but it's like 4 or 5 main characters. They're all writing it in their diary every day, and that's how the story is written, which I really, really enjoyed. It was so gothic. It's set in mostly London, a little bit in Whitby as well. So it's got that English gothic feel to it, which I really, really liked. Again, it wasn't really, really scary, but I felt like that gothic feel really came through and really got me in the spirit of spooky season. And I feel like I really connected with the characters in this one. In contrast to the Frankenstein, where I feel like I didn't connect so much, I think the diary entries really helps you get to know the characters inside and out, and I think because of that I really connected with them. There was a couple characters which I absolutely loved and I was rooting for so much. So overall I thought it was a really great book and I really recommend it. So then my 4th and final book is this one. I just finished this one yesterday actually. It's Dark Entries by Robert Aickman. I've never read anything by Robert Aickman before, never really heard of him that much. I don't know if that's bad or not. But there's a quote on the front from Neil Gaiman that says he really is the best. So I thought I would give it a go and I really enjoyed it. I would definitely read more from Robert Aickman. This book is a series of short stories. I think it's 6 short stories in here, and they've all got this spooky sort of element to it. And I don't know about you, but I feel like when I finish a story, I feel like I really need to take a minute to digest it. So because of that, I feel like I don't tend to gravitate towards short story collections, because as you're reading through, you just go from one to the next, and I feel like you don't really get that chance to sort of digest the story properly. However, I did really like this book. They weren't super scary, again, like the rest of them, but they definitely had those spooky elements. I feel like with this book, when I was reading it, I felt like I could really imagine myself in the situation, and I feel like if I was in those situations, I would be terrified. It was that sort of vibe, so I really enjoyed that. I feel like Robert Aickman is really good at plunging you into the different world. I really enjoyed his writing style. I thought it was really easy to read. So I thought overall it's a really great book. Obviously with a series of short stories, there's always some better than others. My personal favourite was probably the first one. I think it started with a bang, which I really liked. So I really like Robert Aickman. I definitely read more from him. So yeah, they're the 4 books that I've read to get me into the spooky season spirit. I'm sure I'll be reading plenty more. However, I went to my Waterstones yesterday to try and get some books, some spooky books, and there was nothing there. I went in, I was ready to spend my money, I was ready for it, and there was nothing there. So I'm thinking they're gearing themselves up for a whole spooky section. That's what I'm hoping, fingers crossed, that they're going next week. There's going to be spooky books galore. But thank you for watching my first ever YouTube video. I've got a few more in the works, so I hope to see you again.